Next is the complex type, which is an important feature in Entity Framework and frequently used in our domains. Complex type allows me to create a value type for my entity. In this example, I've created my own class, privacy, and then used that type as a property in my alias class. In addition to using the complex type annotation, it's also important to notice that the privacy class doesn't have a key property. It's going to depend on the alias's key for identity tracking. You can use the complex type in any number of classes, and each instance of privacy will depend on its parent class for any change tracking. I've reset my application so that CodeFirst will create my database for me again, and that way you can see how the complex type is realized in the database. I've also removed the database-generated annotation because since I'm letting CodeFirst create the database, and that was applied to a non-timestamp property, I would have had a problem. That particular scenario is very specific and won't work in a more generalized scenario, so I just took it out so that we can focus on complex type. I'll go ahead and run the application. We'll take a look at a few things. Okay, so now I can show you what happened in the database. The first thing to notice is that all of the properties from the complex type are inside the authors table. They're not in a separate table. The fact that they're a separate type is about my domain, not about my database. An Entity Framework will keep track of all those properties as a single instance. The other thing I wanted you to see is the query that went to the database when Entity Framework said, hey, go get me all the aliases. Entity Framework worked out the fact that even though alias is broken up into a couple of different types, that it just needed to query that single database. And when the data comes back, it sorts it out into the alias type and its privacy settings property, which contain these are the three properties: tweets are private, at location of tweets, and HTTPS required. If you're familiar with using complex types in Entity Framework, here's how to get the same behavior when you're using CodeFirst data annotations.